When it comes to Brian Cox, I'm the dang.
You're always within a couple minutes of being that day.
I'm probably a couple minutes within being more than that dang Holly.
Soon,
We're being.
maybe.
So, yeah. But, yes.
Now, Ned is going to be
So, right?
in and out if he's going to be in at all.
He's here for now. He'll be in and out.
Have you started the fluids?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, he won't be in for long.
All right. Well, just so everybody knows, tonight is the first night we're trying our new stream to YouTube rather than having Zoom open to the public. So we are live streaming as of right now, and we will start recording the meeting in about 3 seconds.
So it's a whole new system that you're learning. Okay,
Learn.
and well, this doesn't come to our screen, so got it here. Welcome, everyone. Are we ready? Are we recording? You got that? Are we recording? Is that close enough? Okay. Please make sure yeah. That's right, Ollie. Keep your microphones close, speak clearly. Welcome everyone to the May 21st, 2025 Planning Commission meeting here in Hyde Park City. We will have an opening prayer or thought and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Nielsen.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Heavenly Father, we thank thee for the opportunity we have to meet together and discuss city matters. We pray that we can be guided. Please bless that we can always remember how blessed we are to be in this area and help us that we can do the best we can to help improve it and maintain it. We thank thee for all our blessings in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Right from.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Is Melinda in also?
She's on Zoom.
All right, welcome both to Ned and Melinda. Wherever you might be. First thing is approval of the minutes from May 7th. Does anyone have any comments or corrections they'd like to make to the minutes as they were published in the file?
I didn't see anything.
I can't hear you. You don't have a microphone.
Melinda made a few changes that I noted, so they were just minor changes, grammatical and those kinds of things.
Okay.
This is Ned. I didn't see anything that needed to be changed.
Melinda, when did you make those changes? Oh, that's right. John.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I submitted those to her yesterday, I think.
Okay. So if you read it since yesterday, you wouldn't have noticed the difference. I didn't notice the difference. All right, then. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as they are currently in box.
Second.
Okay, and we have a second from Commissioner Nielsen. Any other comments? All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes as they are currently in in the file inbox, say aye. Aye.
I,
Any opposed, say nay. All right. I think we're good. And now back to the agenda. We have a couple of public hearings. And before we get started, just wanted to remind everyone of the new rules that have been put in place by the city council. Is that correct? And the important thing is that during the time that anyone may be presenting something from the community, we let them talk. We don't answer questions. We don't ask, especially we don't ask questions. And let them get their full 3 minutes in. And then in the discussion phases when we can ask questions. So, all right. We've got the minimum improvement requirements. So I'll first ask Marcus to go over that briefly.
Great, thank you. There are two sections of our minimum improvement requirements ordinance being discussed tonight. Chapter 13 of our municipal code deals with subdivisions. And this section specifically talks about the improvements that are required when a subdivision comes in. So all the things that the developer has to install before they can get a building permit. The two sections we're discussing or opening up for this public hearings. First, a sidewalk section. We've had an issue in the city that's been around for a long time where developers will put sidewalks on the subdivision, but then put it back to the homeowner or home buyer to build that sidewalk. And what inevitably happens is one or two lots don't sell. And so there's a gap in the sidewalk. But then over time, 10 years later, somebody buys the lot and builds the house, and surprise, they also have to put in the sidewalk. So the modification to this ordinance is the language up here, as you can read, that says that it is the developer's responsibility to put in the sidewalk. We're just putting it into the code, explicitly stating the developer needs to put it in. So that's the first section. The second section has to do with curb and gutter requirements. Specifically, we're removing all references to the flat curb being allowed. It's not that the city's against this. The Development Review Committee just felt that the city as a whole needs to have a better, more comprehensive approach to this. There's many sections of towns where we have steep slopes where flat curbs would be a real problem. You'd have an issue with stormwater and washing out of yards. And so until the city can get maybe like a geographical area or other specific requirements associated with flat curbs, it was recommended that we just remove this from the code completely.
But there is the provision unless approved, otherwise approved. So in other words, so developers
Right.
can come in and say, we really don't want the full curb, we want a flat curb. At that point, the city can decide whether or not it wants to approve that.
Right. The flat curb system isn't necessarily the problem. The problem is there's a lot of variation within the city of how the terrain is and how the ground is able to deal with stormwater. So there are specific instances where we would actually want to encourage the flat curbs, but they are specific. It's not something we want broad sweeping open to the development community.
Okay.
So those are the two sections open for public hearing tonight.
Okay. All right. Anything else for that? All right, then let me get back to the agenda. We will open the public hearing portion of this meeting for Hyde Park Municipal Code 13.60.010 minimum improvement requirements, the edits to that code. If anyone would like to make comments to that, please come to the front, state your name and that you are a citizen of Hyde Park, that you live in Hyde Park? Is that the
Or not.
requirement?
If you are a resident or not.
Okay, resident or not. And we'll go from there. And I don't see anybody moving in the congregation there, the group. So we're gonna close that public hearing to HPMC 13.60.010 minimum improvement requirement edits. And open it up to, we're gonna, well, let's just jump right to the next public hearing. Stormwater penalties. HPMC 15.50.080. Marcus, you're on.
Yes, thank you. So the state legislature passed a new law this past session that made it so that the city can no longer hold up a building permit if that building permit does not have a SWIP plan. Now, for those who may be unfamiliar, what SWIP stands for, it's the Stormwater Protection and something plan. Basically, providing that the contractors who come and build the house aren't going to be tracking mud and mess out into the roads and causing a mess on our stormwater system. But now the state made it so that the city can't force them to submit that plan before we give them the permit. However, our city attorney recommends that we add this language to our stormwater ordinance, which allows the city to go up whenever there's a lot under construction. If they do not have a posted SWIP plan, we can impose a fine upon that construction site. Basically, we can't force them to submit their plan, but if they're working without a plan after the permit's been issued, we can send our code enforcement officer up there or public works
Or at least
stormwater person to go and say, hey, you have to have a SWIP permit, and either issue a fine or a warning, or however we're going to do that.
So really that has to be in place before work begins.
Correct.
Okay, so the permit can be issued and then they just have to have it before they start work.
Yep.
Okay,
And that's just this single section right here, 15.50.080B. And this whole document is just the ordinance resolution that will be signed when the council adopts the final version.
okay. So I did see that not only did you make it a fine, you made it a misdemeanor.
All right, this was written up by our city attorney, and he was just following our code enforcement process that's already in place.
So there's a code, this is the same thing as the rest of the code enforcement requirements.
Yeah, so we have two options in our city code enforcement. One is that it could be a criminal penalty as a misdemeanor, or two, we could have it be an administrative fine, which means that it's just our code enforcement officer writes them a letter, and if they're still working without a permit after a week, we can issue a fine directly from the city without giving them a ticket.
Okay,
So it gives us the option to do both.
any questions? No? Ned or Melinda, do you have any questions? Sorry, I forgot to ask the last time.
I don't have any questions.
I'm sure Ned's busy. Okay. All right then. Yeah, the only thing I can say. Yeah. So we just want to make sure that they have some sort of stormwater retention plan. Okay,
So public
and then
hearing.
this resolution approving the changes goes to the city council, their next meeting.
Right, both the last ordinance and this one will go before the city council for final approval.
Okay. All right, well, I'm sorry, I started to jump ahead of myself. Let's open up the public hearing. I didn't do that yet, did I? Okay, open up the public hearing for the edits to Hyde Park Municipal Code 15.50.080 stormwater penalties. Is there a minimum time I have to wait?
No.
No. I mean, I do have to provide an opportunity, but nope. Okay.
You can just ask if anyone's there to speak.
There's there's a few people here, so they all kind of gave me the nod,
The shake.
the shake the head back and forth. Nope. Okay, so we'll close the public hearing. The edit to HPMC 15.50.80.080. And then jump to considering the minimum improvement requirements, meaning those changes to the curbs and the
Sidewalks.
sidewalks. The only thing I can say is, even the regular curbs aren't enough in some areas. I was telling you, we have regular curbs on 200 south in the upper part above, east of 700. And when there's a storm where a lot of water comes down at one time, it will, as soon as it hits the driveway, it will spread out and go into the parkway and take everybody's rocks that they paid lots of money for, even though you can't get a shovel in the dirt here without hitting rocks, and we'll roll them down the street or into your neighbor's yard. And I spent a couple hours one day shoveling rocks out of the intersection of 200 and 700. So with flat sidewalks, there's no way that that water would even go where it's supposed to go. So I'm all for this. I'm in favor of. And I'm in favor of making sure the developers do the sidewalks too, instead of leaving that for the home buyer, unless they are the developer.
I concur.
Okay.
That's all.
A man of many words.
I agree.
Man of many words.
It's a pretty straightforward amendment, so, and it makes sense.
Okay.
I got a couple of comments. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
No, Ned, speak louder.
Okay,
Into your microphone.
We close the public hearing.
okay. On the sidewalk thing, I'm all for that. I wondered if you maybe all want to put something in there about a timeline on how soon the developer has to pay for it, because sometimes they go out of business, or maybe you want to make them leave a bond or something like that. I don't know, but if you want to put that in that revision to the ordinance, they got to do it like within a year of putting the roads in or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things there. First of all, yeah, we already have a section later in chapter 13 that talks about bond requirements and how all public improvements need to be bonded for. And this provision makes the sidewalk essentially public improvement. It already was. But the other difficult part is the state also passed a fancy new law that says that the city cannot force a developer to put in a sidewalk until they're about to give certificate of occupancy to the homeowner. So it makes it, we can't really impose a deadline anymore, but we can hold a bond. And we already have the language in place in the code to do that.
Okay, that sounds good. And then on the other part where you said, where Michael asked about unless approved, and then you said unless recommended by the city, maybe would you rather have that wording in there so that they didn't always try to come in and get it approved, but just when we say you really ought to have flat curb or whatever, then they could do that. I don't know. Maybe that's nitpicky. That was my two comments though.
Okay, thank you. Melinda, do you have anything?
I don't. I'm for both of those.
Okay. Yeah, the only thing I can think is that I don't believe we have a map or anything that's already been designated by a DRC saying, or the city engineer saying, this is where we would like to have flat curbs. So until that's developed, there's nothing that we could really do.
Right. And the DRC, when we discussed this at our last meeting, the whole city staff is willing to put in that work, but we just need some direction from the city council and the planning commission on how you want us to tackle it. Because we can go strictly off of engineering recommendations, but there's also the aesthetic aspect and historic part of town where that's already exists. So there's some more conversation that needs to go into it.
Sorry. Okay, so is that something that we want to pass forward already? Or is that something that still needs further?
No,
revisions?
for now, the recommendation from the DRC is to just eliminate it from the code until we have something like that, and then we can bring it back.
So do we want to remove that unless otherwise? I don't think we want to,
You can take that provision out if you want and just say everybody's doing high back curb,
I
period.
think that's fine.
Okay.
Even have it in there. If we don't want flat curbs, why even have it in there?
We have it in lots of places in the code. I just put it in there because it's a common theme that we have. That there's room for people to propose other things, but we can just as easily remove that.
Or what if someone comes in on one of those few empty lots in the old part of town where it matches everybody else on the block to have flat curb?
Right, if someone were to take an empty lot, say in the core, then they would say, well, why do I need to put a curb here? Because there are no curbs anywhere else along this road.
Mhm.
So I think Melinda's got a point there. I think we ought to leave it in there
Yeah.
unless otherwise approved.
No,
Okay.
she's right.
I think that's a. Ned, does that sound okay?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. All right, any other comments or concerns with the edits to the minimum improvement requirement code?
Not from
Okay.
Melinda,
What was that, Melinda?
not from Melinda.
Oh, I thought you were going to make a motion.
To approve as stated,
Approve.
whatever.
Let's not get lazy now.
All of them, both of them. Can we approve both of them at the same time?
Approve
Well-
the proposed changes. Yeah.
Sorry.
So
Out.
then we need to still discuss the stormwater penalties.
But can we approve both at one time?
Right, but we haven't
Both
discussed,
or-
we haven't.
No, I'm
considered-
just asking if it's
I
possible.
s-
I mean,
Let's just make them.
It's easier to not.
Okay, I make a motion to approve 13.60.010. Is that the right number?
As it's been,
As it's been amended.
okay. All right, we have a motion to approve HPMC 13.60.010 as it has been edited and amended,
I'll second it.
and Ned has seconded it. Thank you, Ned. Any further comments or concerns? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the edits as they currently are to HPMC 13.60.010 minimum improvement requirements, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay. Oh. Did we recommend approval on that one?
said approve, but we understood what you meant.
Yeah, that's a recommendation.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that everyone's aware of that. We don't approve that.
I was
That
gonna
gets
say
approved by
something,
the
but I
city
didn't want to,
council.
I didn't want to stop the momentum.
Yeah. Okay, stormwater penalties. That's you don't have to have a stormwater plan in place when you get the building permit approved, but you have to have it before you start working,
Correct.
or at least before the code enforcement guy shows up.
And
Yeah,
this specifically is just establishing the penalty for not doing so.
right. Yep. That's all it is.
And that is in reaction to the state changes that they made where we can't deny a building permit if they don't have that plan.
Yeah, and I'll complain a little bit here. The state made this change, which they thought was pretty easy, but really this ends up being a huge headache for us because we're already under strict scrutiny for the stormwater standards, and we get in a lot of trouble with stuff like this if there's contractors just tracking mud and dumping it into our system. So it was a little bit rude, in our opinion, that the state legislature just was like, oh yeah, SWIP's not important.
Yeah.
But then the state stormwater agency is still cracking the whip whenever we're even a little bit non-compliant. So there's
Okay.
spiel.
Any comments? Any other comments? Ned, Linda?
I don't have anything.
I make a motion, we approve this one too.
Okay, we have a motion from Ned to approve HPMC 15.50.080 as it's written.
Recommend approval.
Recommend approval. Thank you. Is
Recommend, yes.
that right?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that right? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
All right.
second that.
Melinda seconded.
Oh, you beat me, Melinda. You got it.
Sorry.
Commissioner seconded that. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the edits to that code. Any other comments or concerns? All right, all those in favor of recommending approval, I did that right? Recommending approval to the edits of HPMC 15.50.080 stormwater penalties, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, sounds like it's unanimous. All right, we have another thing to consider. This does not require a public hearing, but we will be voting on this. Is that correct?
We are making a
Recommend-
recommendation to the council.
recommendation.
Yep.
This is the Bringhurst Village phasing plan. This is the development that we approved that is in the north of the city, right along Main Street, on the east side of Main Street. All right,
Would you like?
Marcus, would you please give us the lowdown?
Yes. So I'm sure everybody's familiar with the Bringhurst Village development by now, but in case you've forgotten, Bringhurst Village project is,
Ned and Melinda, can you see that?
I mean, it's far away, but that's all right.
I got it on my other computer. I can see it.
you can find it in box later.
Yeah, it is in box. It is
Okay.
a drawing of the development with the phasing plan that they're proposing, that developers are proposing.
Okay.
So this development constitutes, I forget the exact numbers, but it's approximately 200 townhomes, about 50 apartment units, and with a mixture of apartments and commercial on bottom, and then some commercial units up against the highway. The development was not approved with phases, and so the developer is now coming back to request that the city allow them to split it up into the proposed phases here. There's only one. The engineers did a review on this because part of the submission package was the plan set for phases 1 and 2, which you can see up there. So the city engineer reviewed it. They had a couple comments on the length of the turnarounds and some other minor things with the infrastructure that I won't bring up here. The only comment that they brought up is that our mixed use zoning does have a provision that says, unless otherwise approved by the land use authority during development plan approval, the proposed project is, if it's going to be constructed in phases, each phase shall be all commercial or may include a mix of commercial and residential uses. No phase shall be solely residential unless 50% of the required commercial area has been built in previous phases. So I do have to note that the phasing plan as presented right now, when it was presented to the staff, and I basically told the applicant, I can't say yes to this because it doesn't meet the code. So what they're doing is presenting this to the city, looking for that as otherwise approved permission. And the developer is here if a representative from the developer is here, if there are any questions for them.
Okay. All right, would you like to just come up and tell us what we're looking at. Explain what we're looking at.
I'd love to. Great to see you all again. David, I don't think you and I have had the pleasure of meeting, but very familiar, being here many times. So thank you for having me. As Marcus mentioned, part of that line of code is part of a larger agreement that we're still in the works on right now. The majority of the terms for this agreement are regarding the right-of-way for Wolfpack Way. So as you're very familiar, the far eastern edge of our property has 49.5 feet that will be dedicated to the city as a donation towards Wolfpack Way. In part with those negotiations, what we are agreeing to is that we will be providing the utilities that come all the way up Wolfpack Way. So as you see these green and blue lines, of course, these are not drawn to scale. This is just to highlight a little bit more of what you would be seeing if you zoomed in really close as an engineer on these drawings. But the green indicates the sewer line that runs somewhere to farther to the left side of 4100. We'll be connecting to that, bringing it all the way to the east, and then running it north all the way through to the north end of our property line, allowing for connections all along the way on the east and west sides of it, and even to the north for it to continue again for future developments. Same thing for the water line there. That water line starts at that 4100 point right there at the bottom of it. There is water that already runs all along 4100, and we'll be taking it all the way north. Now, this is a large benefit that we'll be offering to the city simply because A, we need it in order to start our development, but B, the city needs it before they can do the roadway for Wolfpack Way. And I'm not sure if you're familiar or not, but the way that the city's grant funds go when it comes from the county is that they are restricted from accessing or using those for utilities. So that has to come from a different set of funding. So this is a larger part of the agreement that we've been working on. Now, part of this is, as Marcus mentioned, giving us the flexibility to be able to have some different phasing opportunities here. And the reason for that is because as we look at Bringhurst Village as a whole, and Marcus, if you don't mind actually just going back to that very colorful image, thank you. As we look at Bringhurst Village as a whole, call it eastern 2/3 of it there with the townhomes, we have one partner for all of those. So that one partner has all of the different phases that we've been working on with them, and that's what we're presenting right now, starting with phases 1 and 2. We have different partners in the works now for commercial phase 1, which realistically is mixed use, not just commercial, as those have apartments on top of the commercial, and then commercial phase 2. The challenge is that neither of those folks can really proceed forward with financing before any of the residential has begun. There's two parts to that. One, banks just don't care to talk about bringing commercial into a place where there isn't residential already. But two, even worse, is the cost of the utilities and bringing everything else to that area. Now, as we had mentioned from our very early discussions, we knew that that was going to be an issue with bringing utilities, right? But I had always assured you that we were going to be the ones to solve that problem. And that's what we're doing right now, is solving it by bringing those utilities first for residential phases 1 and 2, and then being able to connect onto those with each of the commercial phases. So this won't be the last time you see me, is what I'm saying. Here over the next month or two, you're going to see me come back and present some new phase options as far as which one comes next. Ideally, we're going to see probably half of the mixed use phase come in, and that will be probably phased out as a phase 1, phase 2, between the top 3 and the bottom 3. And then the commercial being phased out most likely as a 1 to 2 phase project next as well. So these are not linear or chronological, but rather just looking at phases 1 and 2 first. Now, I understand, of course, that this is a large development, a large project. As we talked about before, this takes many years to accomplish. And so it can be a lot to wrap your heads around tonight, but I hope that I can answer any of your questions about it as we go along. I've got more that I can share, but I'd love to pause there and see first what questions or thoughts we have so far.
So have you gotten the two developers together to work out a deal to fix the issue by doing commercial at the same time the other developers doing the residential?
Yeah. So what we're suggesting is that the different developers that we're working on for those commercial phases, they can't pencil out anything when it requires them to bring all of the utilities all the way up to those commercial areas. So those utilities have to be brought in for the residential first, and then they can hook onto them. Are there utilities on the west side on Main Street? No. So they go across the highway quite a far distance away. It's actually going to cost far more for them to try to bring them underneath the highway, working with UDOT. The only utility that is on the eastern side of Main Street is a water line. We'll actually be bringing that one north as well. So that is an 8-inch water line that we'll be bringing up along the edge of our neighbor's parcel on the south end, bring that all the way up to the north end of our parcel. That will create what's called a water loop. So that loop is done for phases 1 and 2. Something I should have mentioned as well, standard pipe sizes are 8 inches. We have agreed to do 10-inch pipes for the eastern ones that are going along Wolfpack Way, as that will provide you greater opportunity in the future for future developments without having to upsize those pipes.
Well, I think, don't we need at least that size for that many units?
10-inch.
Yeah,
Typically, we have 8 inches.
yeah, but we have 8, but we don't have anything like this.
Right. Well, really, it goes back to whatever the results of the water model is. So when we did our water master plan 2 years ago now, Sunrise Engineering developed a model that basically we put in the number of units that are being proposed with the existing infrastructure, and it spits out some numbers that say this is what your flows are going to be. If it's too low and it can't meet the fire requirements, then they have to either create more looping or upsize the lines. In this case, they had to do both because this is in a very
So it's kind
undeveloped
of a
area.
requirement anyway, even
So-
though
So I want
We
to be clear,
usually use
the
eight.
loop was the requirement. The 8-inch line is also the requirement. We have agreed to do the 10-inch line. So the 10-inch line is an increase, and the cost to us is going to be far less than it would be for you. So we're adding that as our benefit to you. What I'm explaining though is that the loop is what was required, because just to run, even if we just did it, even a 10-inch line, running it just up north wasn't going to be enough water pressure to go that far. So we are required to loop it, which means we're bringing both water lines up and then looping all the way around the two. And that would have just been an 8-inch line, but that far eastern side, both the sewer and the water will be 10-inch.
does them making the tenant go into the 10-inch line require us to change any other lines
Nope.
as a city?
Marcus, is that accurate? Were they only required to do a loop with an 8-inch line, or were they required to do a loop and a 10-inch line? I was confused on, you guys were both talking at the same time.
No, the problem is when this got approved, I remember it being a requirement to do both, but there's been a second iteration of the utility plan, so that might have been changed. I am not sure.
Okay, but at one point it was that they needed to do a 10-inch line and a loop.
When it was initially approved and we were still working out the red lines, as far as I can remember, yes.
Because that's what I thought I remember too.
But the second iteration, they might have solved that.
Okay, by adding a loop.
I'm not sure.
Got it. Okay. Sorry, you guys were talking at the same, I couldn't hear you.
It's okay. I have all the details. I mean, I can show you the
Sure.
records. I just don't want to get hung up on something nominal. What I'm suggesting to you is just of additional benefits of what we're bringing, things that are part of this right-of-way agreement that are still under discussion. So the terms of it have all been negotiated. The numbers are what we're still working out right now. And so I'm excited to be able to present that to you because or as soon as that goes to before the city council publicly, ideally as soon as next week, because that's part of the phasing plan and part of what we're presenting to you.
Okay, okay, thank you very much. I'm not sure. Does anyone else have any questions?
I did.
Yeah, go ahead, Ned.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, one of mine is like when phase 1 goes in, does open space go in with every phase? Will there be some grassy area? It just looks like that park area, play area in the middle goes in pretty late.
Yeah, great question. The way that it's designed is that open space is laid out and distributed throughout the entire phasing. What we were able to accomplish though is phases 1 and 2 because of our access points. So we were only granted access for a general access point at the northwestern corner from UDOT. So to accomplish any other phase after phase 2, the only one that's most feasible is phase 1. Beyond that, though, there will be further discussion for all of the other phases from 3 through 13 to determine what's most feasible next. Whether one of those comes in with more open space versus another. Also, I apologize, I'm not sure whose name that was on the phone.
Commissioner Lee.
Commissioner Lee, excuse me, I don't
Linda.
think we've had the chance to meet. There are some parks, some smaller parks, but ones in between phases 3 and 4, as well as phase 7 and 6. So they are spread out throughout the entire place. Theoretically too, at whatever point the city starts to work on Wolfpack Way, we are in charge of doing the improvements. So there's grass and landscaped area there as well. So it's hard to say. I mean, there's definitely some grassy areas, but it's going to take some time for us to be able to offer everything that was part of this project.
No, I understand that. Okay, a couple other questions, and these may be for our city people as well. I know, like, if I bought 2 lots and I want to build my house in the middle, I have to combine those lots before I can get a building permit. Do we have that same requirement in commercial areas, Marcus?
No, it's only in residential.
Okay, so not problematic that these are still 2 separate lots. Okay.
Well, how is this going to be? Is this a rental or a buck for purchase?
For sale. Yep.
Okay, so each one of those homes
Is platted.
is their own separate lot.
Correct. Yep.
Okay,
To
okay.
join a single home on 2 lots, you would still have to go to the county and change that to combine into one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, yeah, when I build my house in the middle, these are townhomes or what, like, they'll be individually owned. I understand. Okay.
Yeah. If you have it up, if you're able, you could zoom in real deep. I mean, again, as a reminder, this is a large scale. These are 206 townhomes. So it makes more sense if we are able to really zoom in. But what we're looking at here is a whopping 15.5 acres. So sometimes it can be challenging to see each of these blocks of townhomes might look like one single family home. But when we zoom in closer, you can see the individual layouts between each of them.
Yeah, right. I've seen that. And I saw that, like, there's 3 different sizes, and yeah, I understand that part.
Okay.
My other, sorry, I'm fairly new to this.
Okay.
I just thought, like, everybody has to have 2 ways of egress, 2 in and out. But do we really just have the highway? We don't have Wolfpack Way, or this won't be occupied until Wolfpack Way is in, or talk to me
Kind
about
of.
that.
So to catch up to speed here, the code requirement as far as fire code goes is anytime you go over 100 units, you have to have more than 2 ingress egress points of access for safety.
At least 2, not more than 2. You have to have at least 2.
2 or more.
Is that not what I said?
You said more than 2.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, at least 2 points of access, so 2 or more. Okay. And so what we have here is one approved from UDOT at the northwestern corner. The reason why UDOT wouldn't approve a secondary access point for general use is because if you look just south of our parcel at the southwestern corner, there's going to be a future intersection there at what there would be in the future calling 4200. Actually, I guess technically it is 4200 on the western side of Maine. And so because of that, we have a lot of different options that we've built into our plan. The first one, though, is the option that if the amount of units within our development reaches 100, prior to us going over 100, we will be putting in what is called a fire truck apparatus road, which is at that southwestern corner. It's hard to see if you're able to zoom in that purple area, though. You can see where there's a fire truck apparatus for safety. That is a gated access that is only for fire trucks. Aside from that, we have on our first drive aisle that is about 1/3 of the way in from the west going to the east. There's a north and south access point there. There's also another set of north and south access points right above phase 1 and then right between phases 12 and 13. Another set of eastern access points over on Wolfpack Way. And so an additional total of 6 extra access points that will be available depending on who develops first. So
yeah, I'm not worried about access eventually. I'm just worried about access when it's only phase 1 and something happens to block off that one entrance.
So I don't know what to say though beyond the fire code. This has
Yeah.
been
No, that's fine. If fire department has it, that's fine.
It's all approved by fire code because it's less than 100 units. But once we reach 100 units, we are required to have a secondary access point or the fire truck apparatus at that point.
Okay,
But they have many access points in there before that. This is, as I mentioned, to catch you up. We anticipate even the first couple phases here being the ones that take the most work with utilities, probably taking about a year at least to get those finished. And then for the entire development, I would assume even the residential is going to be minimum 3 to 5 years out. That's probably optimistic. And then we're probably looking anywhere from 4 to 7 years for the entire project total to be finalized. So this is going to take quite some time. And over that time, it'll be pretty easy for us to be able to connect with our neighbors to the south and the north as they're starting their plans. I know that our neighbor to the south has already gotten his rezoned or at least applied.
Rezoned.
Yep, thank you. And then we've been in discussion about Wolfpack Way. The grants for the funding for engineering just came through, so we're excited to see that starting to get built out here in the future. So I think that what we've done is ensure that we are able to meet the code and ensure that there will be safety met, but in the future it'll be a non-issue.
right. I agree. Okay, talk to me just a little bit, walk me through like the north-south connectivity where it has to be like at least, our blocks can't be more than 350 feet, which that looks like, you divide it into about thirds. Is just one of those a road and the other one a pedestrian, or two of those are a road? Is the middle one like a pedestrian walkway?
You're talking about the accesses on Wolfpack Way?
No, on the north and south borders, like, because we want
So-
the connectivity between developments.
Yeah, those have a different code requirement though when it comes to the separation of distance. I believe it's 150 feet.
I can talk about it if you want.
Sure. Go ahead.
So Melinda, just for your information, we had an overruling factor here, which is the spacing required by our master plan, where 4,200 is very close here on the south end. That has a spacing restriction. And so we tried to have them match that spacing restriction rather than accommodating pedestrians where that's a requirement of our master plan. So that's more of the reason why that's not as closely paid attention to here. It's because we were more concerned with the future entrances coming out on 242. And then these guys wanted to have their access be as straight as possible going north. So that's why it shook out that way.
Okay, yeah, it looks like that one kind of dead ends in the middle, in that phase 6, that one road from the bottom.
Used to be further over, kind of like right in the middle where it says phase 13. That's where it used to be. But again, it was that spacing requirement. So we had to push it over. So now it kind of dead ends and then continues.
Because that's a high access road, I'm sure. Okay, so yeah, just talk to me back there, like in between phase 1 and 2. Tell me, is that like a sidewalk for pedestrians?
Both. A roadway with sidewalks on both sides.
Cars can drive between phases 1 and 2?
No, those are
Sorry, my apologies. Not between phase 1, 2, sorry. Right above the phase 1, right next to that P. Thank you, Marcus.
Right. I see that that's a road. Tell me what it's like between 1 and 2.
So that's the sidewalk, pedestrian walkway.
And will that be open to whatever's to the north of it that comes in?
Potentially. We are open to offering easements for that, for sidewalks. So far, we have easements already offered for the access points for the roadways. The sidewalks, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't, because we're putting them right up against the property lines. But rather what you're also seeing right in between those units A and C are 2 parking stalls. So we found a very efficient way to be able to utilize those spaces so that people can have additional visitors parking stalls.
I see.
Different rows of townhomes. So you'll see that actually throughout the whole development.
Okay.
And Linda,
Yeah,
I would imagine that there's going to be a fence along the northern side.
that was my next question. Okay, fence
It's
on
only
like
required when it
north and
borders
south?
zone. So it's not a requirement. I mean, if the developers wanted to put a fence up, there's nothing stopping them from
Well,
doing that.
it is somewhat of a residential zone. I mean, it's
Well, right now,
excused, but
right now, the stuff to the north, the property to the north,
it's
wow,
going to be commercial, right?
is unincorporated county. The owner is currently applying to be annexed into the city, but right now that's not even within our city boundary.
Okay.
I
Do
think
we
it goes right
need
back
thinking
to
about doing?
Yeah, he wants to do something similar, but it's only when it's up against a strictly residential zone. Like if it was an R2 or an R4, then it's required to put a fence up.
Okay,
But where it would be bordering potential mixed use in the future, it's not a requirement that the fence be installed. But they can if they want to.
Yeah, I think it goes right back to Melinda's question, though. We're still waiting to see what our neighbors end up developing. We're, as you know, we move much faster than most folks here. And so we moved forward with this and tried to work with both of them on these plans. They've been very amicable, but just haven't made their final decisions. And so, you know, if they wanted to utilize those sidewalks to some extent, maybe they wanted to put another flip-flop version of townhomes along those rows and utilize those sidewalks to some extent. I don't see a reason why they shouldn't be able to, and why we would put a fence there to stop them and make it a more contiguous or continuous appearance of townhomes that would continue in a way that looks assimilated. In any case, yeah. I'll leave that until our neighbors north and south come up with some projects.
I just have one last question. And might be kind of silly. I'm looking at your street names. You know, you've got Yellowstone Way and Borg Boulevard, Roadster Road. Tell me about the Cuddles Corner.
The family name, actually, surprisingly enough. It's actually the uncle of one of our business partners, and he was one of the largest inspirations for us all getting into real estate.
Okay, I figured it had to be some person's name. Otherwise, it sounded, I don't know, a little on the silly side, but.
Chance to become a teenager's favorite spot, I'm not sure, but.
I know that we're not necessarily going for that. I have a 15-year-old. I don't want him on Cuddles Corner.
Well, fortunately, not on a hill with a great view. We'll put it that way.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. That's all my questions.
Please don't hesitate at any time if you want to reach out to me, though, and set up an individual call to dig into anything else. I'm always happy to chat through these things further.
All right. Thanks, David.
Okay.
Ned, did you have any questions?
I did. Okay, so I was a little confused on one thing. I think you said something about the phases weren't going to happen linearly. Does that mean the phasing is a sequence, right? I mean, I'm a little confused on what you're when you said that. I understand that maybe you start selling and building in phase 3 before phase 2 is completely done or whatever like that. But I mean, this is the order you're going to do them in, right? These 1 through 13 on the residential side.
Great. Thank you for giving me a chance to clarify that. Actually, I should have spoken more on that. What I meant to say is that what you're effectively approving tonight is just phases 1 and 2. And phases 1 and 2 are happening in coordination. And frankly, I don't know why we're splitting the two of them out. I think only because the building permits are going to be pulled for phase 1 and then building permits for phase 2, even though all of the infrastructure for both of them will be put in, as is obvious based on the roadways. Beyond that, though, what I meant to say is that they're not linear in the sense of phases 3 through 13 are what we currently perceive is going to make the most sense, but things change. And so we might come back and say, actually, we're going to flop phases 4 and 5, and we're going to flop phases 6 and 7, and then we'll request approval on those. Additionally, I didn't want anybody to think that we're just doing phases 1 through 13 and then going to commercial. It's absolutely not what's happening. It's just that the commercial phase 1, which is mixed use, commercial phase 2, will be coming back to outline exactly when those are happening. And so, so thank you for giving me the chance to talk about that, because yeah, timelines as far as what's happening next is going to be a work in progress.
so you don't have any idea of when any of your non-commercial phases are getting ready to start?
Well, I got a lot of ideas. Yeah.
Okay, any
No,
firm ideas?
Nothing's signed, so that's why I can't publicly disclose it, but
Okay,
you will see me very soon.
Do you have an idea of when the commercial will start?
Again, I can give you my best optimism and sell you on something here, but you know that's not my method. So I always give you what we believe is accurate, what is most correct and true. So do I believe that it's going to come in before mixed use? No. But do I believe it's going to come in before even halfway through the townhomes? Absolutely, yes.
I should have clarified. Commercial phase 1, so mixed use.
Yes, I believe that I'm going to be coming back next month talking about that.
Okay.
all right. Any other comments, Ned, Melinda?
Not from me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, now discussion between members of the commission. I know what the code says. And one of the, I guess, one of the main reasons why we even decided on a mixed use was so that we could get commercial in. The uncertainty of when that might be started is of a concern to me. And saying, and if the developers are only relying on this residential development to feed customers into the commercial part, I mean, you're right there next to Smithfield. Well, you're in between the Smithfield and Hyde Park. So if the Endeavor has interest to anyone, they'll go there
Mhm.
because it's close. And I'm not sure if we should go against what we have in the code, which could you pull that up again, Marcus,
Yeah, you want me to read it?
please?
It says, unless otherwise approved by the land use authority during development plan approval, if the proposed project is to be constructed in phases, each phase shall be all commercial or may include a mix of commercial and residential uses. No phase shall be solely residential unless 50% of the required commercial area has been built in previous phases.
Maybe for a little extra education, what's the mindset behind that ordinance or that?
So, to refresh everyone's memory, when the city did our general plan, we hired a consultant. Part of the contract was to help us update our codes and write new codes. This provision was proposed by the consultant. They had worked for Layton City and a few other cities previously. And they said this was a problem where a developer would come in, build all the residential units and then skip town, or come back and say, well, we can't find anyone to fill the commercial units. So can we change this to be just more residential? And so they said that putting this provision in the code would give the city more ability to force that commercial, if you don't necessarily have a tenant lined up, at least build a space for them when they're ready to come in. Now, we understand that development is hesitant to do that. It's a very big risk for them to take on.
What's the
we-
benefit to the city if they do take on the risk, build all the units and then they sit empty for 5 years?
Exactly. That's the problem. The city doesn't really
Like
gain.
just having them there doesn't guarantee they're going to get filled. There's tons of empty space in the county.
You're not wrong. So anyway, that's the concern.
Okay.
It was a recommendation from a consultant. The city accepted it, but where we haven't had any mixed use finished yet, there's one project underway, under construction. It's hard for us to really understand if this is going to be a help to the city or a hindrance.
So I agree. There's only 26 units in phase 1 and 2. I don't see that as being a huge draw for commercial to all of a sudden have, like, we're able to do commercial because we have 26 roofs. Did Aria split? Remind me, was Aria phased? Aria wasn't, it was one.
No, and so 2 points of clarification. It's not just about having humans there. It's about getting the utilities there. The cost of
Okay.
bringing those utilities up there, we're talking about nearly $1 million.
Yeah.
You can't put that all on one project that's doing some mixed use commercial and a few apartments. You can't put that all on 5 commercial buildings.
Right.
Neither one of them would ever come to town. So this isn't just about humans coming in. This is about project feasibility. If we can't get a residential person who's doing all of our townhomes to bring those utilities first, then everybody else just says, well, yeah, commercial doesn't have utilities. It costs us way too much to bring them up. We can't do this project. It can't pencil. And then to your other question about the ARIA. So we had discussed whether or not it was going to be phased. And as of right now, no. To my knowledge too, we've already had all the building permits pulled for all of the units as they're already platted for. So commercial's coming in right now.
That's what I thought.
I might just add, I mean, you guys have talked to a lot of mixed use developers over the years. We're the first ones to actually move on something.
Yeah.
We're still involved in the ARIA. We're still involved in all of this. And I would like to think that's earned us some political capital here to be able to tell you that what we say we do is what we actually do.
So let me ask you a quick question too. How many units do you need to build, or how many phases do you need to have approved to pay for the utility improvements that get you to where they need to be so you can start building commercial?
Just these two.
Just 1 and 2.
Just 1 and 2, because 1 and 2 is going to be able to bring all the utilities, all the water, all the sewer, and then the water up along the highway. Then we now can say, okay, we've got water and sewer all along 1 and 2. Now to bring it for the mixed use or to bring it for the commercial is almost nothing. And so for them to be able to look at what's their increased costs as they're trying to build out performance here, it's a no-brainer at that point. So as far as that's what I meant by timelines too. You know, yeah, maybe phases 3 and 4 are going to want to start underway just because maybe the market changes and that guy's getting moving faster with us. But realistically, once phases 1 and 2 are started and the utilities are brought up, mixed use and commercial come right along with it.
You hope.
Because it's a
We all
scalability,
hope.
it's a scalability issue.
It's our
Can
plan.
Right.
Can I ask a question?
First contact.
Right.
No plan survives first contact.
So
You
could
go.
we, with the, I don't, approval of this, could we state something that like, yeah, we'll approve 1 and 2, but after that, we need to have a mixed use as our next phase?
Yeah, and
That's
this
my
is
question. I was just going to ask a question. Could we say we'll approve commercial phase 1 as your overall project phase 3? We'll give you approval on 1, 2, and 3, and you can't go beyond that until you're going on that.
so this is a little
1, 2,
deceiving.
and 1, Ned?
1, 2,
I'm
and
saying
1.
phase 1 and 2 sits as they are, as he has them, but call commercial phase 1 project phase 3, and we'll approve those 3 phases before you get any more approved. That work?
So this is a little deceiving is the wrong word because nobody's trying to do anything shady. But
Right.
if we keep scrolling down here, you'll see that what they're proposing is an overall phasing plan. But really what's being proposed is just the construction drawings for phase 1 and 2, which means they got to come back for every other phase that comes down the line to get the new construction drawings approved. And if they're proposing a different plat where they're going to plat the individual units differently, we're going to have that reviewed and approved too. So they're going to come back every time they're ready to build another phase. They're coming back with a new set of plans to get it approved. And the city could really easily say, hey, we approved phase 1 and 2. We'll approve phase 3 and 4, but we're not approving another phase of commercial. The next one better, or the next
Right.
phase better be commercial, or else we're going to say no because we're violating the code, or so
We'll
there's,
set that expectation.
this isn't the last time you'll see this. Tentatively, you're saying we're okay with the phasing plan, but they still got to come back every time when they're ready to actually start building one of these phases.
Right. And the phasing plan will change. It's just the nature of
the
it.
nature
It
of
will change.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
not going to look exactly.
Yeah.
I'd be a fool if I said this, there's no
Yeah,
changes
it's not set in
whatsoever.
stone.
Like I mentioned, commercial phase 1, I anticipate we're going to come back with 2 phases for that as well. The top
Okay.
3, the bottom 3.
Sure.
Again, though, I'm guessing. So I need to come back with firm knowledge on that. And that's then when you can vote on that one. But yeah, thank you, Marcus. Really, we're just talking about phases 1 and 2 today, and you'll see me a lot more if you aren't sick of me yet.
Yeah, and I guess just looking for overall comments on, we'll call it the master phasing plan, because that's a very popular city government term. So there you go. Really, it's just approving the construction drawings for phases 1 and 2 with giving a thumbs up to the overall layout of the rest of the phases. But they got to come back for every single one of them.
I like the drive. It's really not bad, you know?
The hour and a half each way. Yeah.
2, but yeah. Nobody's counting.
And are we approving or recommending approval?
Recommend.
It's a recommendation.
I don't have a problem with just 1 and 2, with
Sure.
the understanding that mixed use needs to come pretty quickly after. I understand scalability and that you need to bring up utilities. I understand all that.
Yep.
So I guess I don't have an issue with 1 and 2 with setting that expectation.
Yeah, I think I'd just like to, any motion would be just dealing with phase 1 and 2,
Absolutely.
not with anything else. not, does not mean a recommendation of the overall phasing plan, because we don't have an overall phasing plan.
Agreed. Then that's all we're asking
Yeah.
for tonight. We were just trying to give you as much information as we have today, but yes.
So,
So in that case, a motion might be approve the phasing plan for phases 1 and 2. And that's it.
Recommended.
Recommend.
okay,
He's quick. Thank you, everyone.
okay, thank you. All right, well,
You motioning?
Yeah, I'll make a motion
okay,
to recommend approval of phase 1 and 2 of the phase plan.
okay. Any other
For-
conditions?
No, I don't think so. I think
Okay.
they're gonna have to come back for, and I think we'll have that ability to deny or request additional information before they can proceed with any additional phases.
Yeah, I would like to add something to that.
Okay.
So I would just like to add that this recommendation of approval shouldn't be deemed as a recommendation of the entire plan. And that we realize that there is that need to bring the utilities improvements up, and that's required. And those are the things that are gonna fund it. So we have to get those in. So,
Can I add
Alright.
one thing to what you said, Michael? Because I agree with that. Can we maybe have the drawing package that is included in this annotated to say only phase 1 and 2? These are other things are not.
I think it does already at, which page is it? Page 3 of 14 shows only the phases that are being recommended at this time.
And page 1 clarifies it also. It just
Oh,
says
okay.
Bringhurst Village, Hyde Park,
Yes.
phase 1 and 2.
The picture in the upper left-hand corner also shows the site map with only those phases 1 and 2 as highlighted. Everything else is dark
Okay.
and shaded.
I think he was just giving us the overall map just to give us an idea of what the phasing could look
Mhm.
like, just as a general idea, but we're here only for phase 1 and 2.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and
I
an
second.
amendment to the motion. Is what I considered, what I said,
Would he
an
be a second?
amendment?
Were you amending the motion?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because I kind of wanted that realized. I wanted the city council to know
Okay.
that that's what we were thinking. If we are all in agreement on that.
Okay, did you get all?
So the motion was phase 1 was, or part 1 was
To recommend
recommend approval of
phase
phase
1 and
1
2.
and phase 2 with the amendment that this doesn't constitute recommendation of the entire phasing plan. But we realize, and that we realize that we're not, okay, I'm gonna really go off here. We realize we're not following code exactly, but we have to do that to get the utilities up there at this time. It shouldn't be considered a regular thing that we're gonna do. Does that make sense, everyone? So that's the motion
In its entirety.
in its entirety. And we have a second, right? Did you
Sure.
second it
Uh-huh.
with the amendment?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So Holly is seconded. So all those in favor of recommending,
In its entirety in the next 30 minutes.
all those in favor of recommending approval of allowing phase 1 and phase 2 to proceed, realizing that the entire phasing plan is not being recommended this time because there is no phasing plan to recommend. And that it's not indicative of how we're going to be enforcing the code in the future. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Now, did anyone actually really understand what I said? Because I'm
I think
confused.
we've all got
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
we,
I'm really curious.
Phase 1 and
as-
2 recommended.
I think we have half of city council here anyway,
you know,
so I think we're okay.
I'm really kind of curious. Yeah,
8 balls.
the 8 ball.
we got it. Colette's got the notes. We got
I'm
it.
really curious to see what AI will say when we get the notes back from AI.
We had to dump the AI. It was not smart
Not
enough.
doing it. Okay.
No.
Yeah. Somebody was over explaining.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Just to.
All right, we have some other discussion items. Okay. Edit to the mountain. Thank you very much. If you want to take off and head home while it's still late. His office is in the back, isn't it? Doesn't he rent room?
Yeah, don't you have like a sleeper sofa back there? That's what he thought. I got a nice little fridge.
He rents a mini apartment. Have you registered that with the city to make sure we're getting taxed on that?
Make sure we're paying taxes. Thanks, Dustin. You really should just rent an apartment at this point.
It's the mountain, right?
Yeah, well, there was a while he was here quite a bit. And he drives that huge truck.
You know, it's.
So, okay. Mountain Rec Zone. Marcus, talk to us about the edit to the Mountain Rec Zone.
Okay, so this was discussed the last meeting. I think it was Commissioner Hanson who brought up that he had some major concerns with the Mountain Rec Zone. And the commission kind of agreed that they wanted to revisit it, just look at it before we get any submissions. I asked everybody to send me any language that you were specifically concerned about. Nobody sent me anything, so I have nothing to formally present.
Okay. That's okay. I sent you lots of other stuff.
You did, and I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Okay, so is there anything in particular that we feel needs to be changed? I'm not familiar enough with the Mountain Rec Zone, to be honest.
I could give a just overview of what the Mountain Rec Zone is, if that would be helpful.
Before you do that, Mr. Ned, do you
Yes.
want to this kind of Mr.
As opposed to Mr. Ed.
Sorry, that's Mr. Ed. Sorry, I'm used to with my kid. Do you want to be here in person since this is something you wanted to discuss, or do you feel comfortable doing it via Zoom? Because if we haven't gotten any applications up, Marcus, up until now, we would be good to push this 2 weeks, unless you think they're forthright.
Oh, they're forthright. The drafts are in my inbox. I'm reviewing them
You
now.
had like 100 pages. Have you gone through each page?
I've gone through 120.
Okay,
The rest of the 400-page packet is imminent.
so within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, whenever the developer gets it to me.
Now,
Okay.
have they actually submitted or are they only
Nope.
provided?
So they've provided it to me for a screening where I'm going through it with them, just trying to figure out what the city actually needs for the submission and what we're okay with saving for later. So we're working through that. And as soon as we've gone through all those pages, they will be putting in a formal application.
So that could be within the next 2 weeks.
I'd say a month.
Oh, a month. Okay.
Yeah.
So Commissioner Hanson, did you want to be here in person or are you comfortable doing it via Zoom?
I'm okay. Well, it'd probably be better to be in person. I give you a couple of my thoughts, and I should have sent it out as an email. One of them was there was a ratio of open space land and on the whole development, and I'm I'm looking up here at the foothills above us, and there's different kinds of land up there. There's relatively flat land and there's relatively steep land, and if we just give them a percentage of their land that they have to put in as open space and parks and stuff like that, who's to say that it doesn't just end up being side hill that's really crappy compared to the flatter land, if you know what I'm saying. So I'm just wondering if we weren't being specific enough there. And then I think I expressed verbally before, is I'm a little worried about the traffic issue, and a lot of it, it does require a traffic plan or a traffic analysis, but it doesn't tell them what to look for in their analysis. So is it going to be enough for us, or are we specific enough to make sure we don't end up with traffic jams? Those were the two things in my mind that I thought we wanted to maybe think about.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We definitely, with the hillsides the way they are, we don't want the open space to just be the cliff rock side. I mean, it needs to be usable by the community.
So you want to start by talking about open space?
Well, I'm wondering, do we want to?
I don't know. Do we
Table it.
want to talk about this tonight, or are we just postponing this for?
Well, I'm
Another-
okay with waiting if, unless you want to talk about it tonight. Because I
Well-
can't see the screen very well, so we can do it next time.
Let's just get a quick overview of what the mountain rec zone is for.
Yeah, let me give like a 5-minute history of this.
Okay.
So, like I said, with the Mountain Rex or with the mixed use zone, when we redid the general plan, we hired a consultant. Consultant helped us write a lot of new codes. This is one of them that came out of the process. A lot of the bones of this ordinance came as a recommendation from a developer. We kind of took it with a grain of salt and redid it to suit what we thought would be better. Some of the highlights are the Mountain Rec zone requires a very complicated master development agreement before we can even grant the rezone. We have to get this huge submission from them with traffic plans, utility plans, geological studies, soil studies, which is what I'm going through right now. Just basically proving that the developer can do what they're trying to do, because this zone is meant for huge parcels of land, 80 acres or greater. And so once they submit that to the city reviews it, and then they submit for a rezone. So during that rezone process, there's a big negotiation where the city has a lot of leeway. If you read this code, there's a lot of opportunity for us to say, yes, we do want you to do it this way. No, we don't want this to happen. There are some base requirements for the zoning itself. For permitted land use types, we allow single family neighborhoods. There's not really a specification on how much of that is. There's height restrictions on everything. We allow higher density, like a townhome or an apartment, but there's still a height limit on it. It can't be taller than a regular single family residence. We require that there be significant amount of natural open space, we call it, ground that we want to be left open and in its natural state. And then there's a very big requirement on active, active recreation areas. So like trails and amenities people can get out of their house and use. Now, with the development standards section, I mean, you can read it here. There's a density calculation. It's a gross density calculation, 3 units per acre. The idea is those 3 units per acre can be split up between the different housing types. So you will have clusters of housing put together with maybe like a town center area with a little mixed use portion, apartments going out to townhomes, going out to single family. But by squishing all those units into one spot, you can leave a gap of open space, spacing out these developments so you're not just looking at a sea of houses up on the hillside. The requirement for open space, oh, it's in here somewhere. I don't remember exactly how much it is. I want to say it's like 15 to 20%.
20% go up a little bit. C5.
C5, yep, 20% of the total project acreage needs
Actually,
to
that's
be.
20% of the required.
Oh yeah, so C4, 35% of the total acreage has to be dedicated as natural open space. And then of that natural open space, 20% has to be dedicated for the purpose of active recreational facilities. Those numbers were decided after a long conversation with one of the developers who's looking at making about 600 acres worth of property up there. This is what they proposed, very low numbers initially, and the city pushed them way beyond that. And then this was the middle point where the developer was putting their plans together and saying, we could make this happen. So that number is very much based on one developer's opinion, not necessarily data. I'll just leave that to think about. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, there's design standards here, talk about how we want the development to propose design standards for everything, not just the buildings, but if they want to propose different standards for street types and cross sections, if they want to have flat curbs or if they want to have no curbs. We let the developer propose all of that with the application. So this isn't just another subdivision in Hyde Park. The zoning pretty much allows the developer to create their own unique community.
It's almost a planned community.
Yeah, it's a master plan community. That's the idea, is you get somebody who can plan hundreds of acres at a time. It gets built over the course of however many decades. But it blends with the city, but it can also stand on its own as its own unique housing product. So it's, you know, if we want to go in and mess with it, that's fine. But just keep in mind, before they even submit a subdivision plan, we have this whole process we got to go through to negotiate the development agreement and say, we want your units to look like this, and we don't want you to do you know, soccer complex up there because you're going to be watering with too much water. So instead, you're going to put in a basketball court, indoor basketball court or something. You know, there's a negotiation that has to happen with the developer.
Is this based off of any other code in Utah? Like, is it similar to anybody else's, like Park Cities or Heber Cities or Sand Hollows?
So the developer actually hired a consultant to help them write their first draft. And he was looking at Park City, he looked at Daybreak, he looked at some of these very popular unique communities, planned communities in the state to build his bones of it. And then our consultant, who we had hired, put their more realistic approach of what they've seen work in other communities that they had worked for. So the bones of it were very much based on like a Park City or Daybreak type community.
Because the part that I've read seems similar to like a Heber City and Sand Hollow down in Utah. Say it's stupid, but it's Hurricane.
It's Hurricane.
Okay.
The original
Yeah,
founders
have to
were
say
British.
Hurricane or it doesn't count.
Okay,
The
Hurricane.
original founders of the town were British, so they called it
Okay.
Hurricane.
It felt similar to that.
Okay,
It's like Meat Creek.
all right, so
It's creek, but
again, if
yeah, Manaway.
we'll have everyone, as far as I know, we'll have everyone here at our next meeting, maybe. I'll be,
Yep.
Oh, wait.
Should be.
I might be online. I should be able to be here. I think I'll be in Richfield. CIB conference.
But as of now, you haven't received any suggested edits, correct?
Nope. So if anybody has recommendations or changes you want to propose, that's fine. I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from doing that, but I definitely recommend you read it and think about it in the context of this whole thing. The city doesn't have, this isn't like a regular zone. If somebody comes and gets rezoned to mixed use, we're put in this box and we have to give them whatever they want as long as it's within the bounds of the box. The mountain rec zone is a rezone. We don't have to give them the mountain rec zone if we don't want to, if they can't make it fit. So the whole thing's a negotiation. This is very different from a standard subdivision ordinance or development ordinance.
What is all that land zoned at right now? R2?
Most of it's zoned as open space. Although there is some that's R2.
Okay. All right, so one of the suggestions is we put together our changes that we might, or concerns that we might have for the next meeting. Specific, not general, but specific concerns so that we can actually recommend, well, we still have to have an open
Yeah.
public hearing the next time.
Well, and that's why I'd say email them to me, because then I can prepare a draft with all the track changes and we can have something to present and get everything ready to schedule a public hearing.
Okay. Yeah, we'd have to have a public hearing before we could change it, recommend changes to anything.
Yeah, and we're not going to schedule a public hearing until we have changes to post.
Right,
So
okay. Do I have to?
yeah, it's just a discussion item, so there doesn't need to be
No,
a motion or
doesn't
anything.
need
You
no
can just move on to the next
doesn't need
item.
no motion. Okay, that's
Doesn't
really
need
good.
no motion.
No
You
motion.
getting tired?
Yeah, it's late, past almost my bedtime. All right, the next discussion item was gravel pits. And I did see that someone had put in some things into the gravel pit folder for ordinance examples. There was one piece of property that we were concerned about. It was up toward the upper water tank in that direction.
Mhm.
And there was concern that one of the new legislations that was passed by the state might force us to allow that to happen. When I was at the APA Utah convention, they are meeting, whatever you want to call it. I actually bumped into one of the lawyers from the Property Rights Ombudsman's office. That's really hard to say for some reason for me, ombudsman. And I wrote her an email and asked her opinion, gave her as much detail as I could. And basically she said, you don't got a problem.
Right.
So then the reason is because it's the city that creates a critical infrastructure materials protection area. Gravel pits fall under that critical infrastructure materials. Okay, so we would have to do that, or it would have to have been in operation before 1st of January or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's
So
not.
Well, and I put in one, I did like an ordinance, it's under gravel pits, and then on the bottom, I have the legal basis of saying why we can do it and the Utah codes.
So just to some background, the law that Commissioner Mills is talking about was one where the gravel pit lobby got together and convinced the state legislature that gravel is a critical resource. And so they gave themselves a new protection. And so if a piece of ground is given that protection, it's almost like a zone where then they get their own set of rules and the city loses a lot of control of what we can tell them. Where Hyde Park doesn't have any existing gravel pits, we are not going to have that issue. So nobody can like bypass our requirements and make one of these zones without the city say so. So we're safe from that. The only other problem we have is we need to have a city code update, a new city code or update to existing code to specify where we do or do not allow gravel pits specifically and what are the rules we have around them. So the state bypass is not going to apply to us, but we do need to get some kind of ordinance. So Colette and Melissa put all those examples in box. Typically with ordinances like this one, there's a lot of plug and play. Just take the sections that we feel like apply to us, review it with the city attorney and make sure we're not violating any new state rules, and then we can get it approved. Did anybody have a chance to read through those examples and find pieces that you really like so we can start putting together a Hyde Park version? Or do you just want us to take the Smithfield one and change the name to Hyde Park? Like,
So I went through and then I plugged them into AI with what I wanted to change, and it plugged me out a whole ordinance. It's in the box.
so that's the one you
Just
put
the
in
gravel
box.
pits.
I read that one earlier. I really like it.
Thank you.
I'm
It was all
nervous
me,
about,
actually. I actually didn't use AI at all.
I'm nervous about a couple provisions,
Well,
but I'm just gonna,
things that I'm like, that might be skirting the line a little bit, but overall, I think it gives a good, like, you
Yeah.
have to be this far apart, or like you can't. And I was okay. I wanted it to not state that you couldn't move land or gravel from one side of a parcel to another. Like, that's okay. It just can't be removed from the parcel. Because I don't want trucks going up and down the roads like gravel trucks because they're moving it to another one of their parcels that they own. They're not selling it, they're just
Oh,
moving it.
I see what you mean.
Because in some of the Smithfield, I think it was the Smithfield, it was for commercial use, like it said that specifically. So I don't want to state that because the developer might have 15 projects and we're just moving it. It's like, well, we
Okay.
don't want to do that either.
I get what you're saying now. I thought you meant like they can mine all the gravel they want, but it can never leave the parcel.
No, they just can't.
Purpose.
They just can't take it
I-
off the
I get you
parcel.
now. I get you now.
Yeah, so that's the ordinance that I popped in there is like kind of a Frankenstein over about 10 different ones that I looked at throughout the state
Mhm.
is what that was.
The one thing that may not be possible, depending on where we put it, I guess, is G, access restrictions in her example.
Mhm.
Just because, I mean, we looked at that one piece of property where the gentleman said he wanted to do it and thought, okay, how is he going to get out now? And there was no way for him to get out without going through.
Well, that's why I put it, and this is just a suggestion, but that's
Right.
why I put it in there that like, you can't take it on a residential road, bro.
Yeah,
Bruh, we
Like
put that in the
I
code.
don't know if we can
It's
stop it
just-
because there are no other
Well-
possibilities.
I put it, AI told me it was legal. That's all I'm saying. ChatGPT
It
wouldn't-
probably doesn't include the 17, whatever this other.
I'm nervous. That's the only other provision that I was nervous about. I know we can put restrictions on it. I don't know if we can
Can we
say no residential when that's like the entire rest of the way to get out of town. So
Yeah.
I'll run it by the city attorney, but
Again, just an example.
Or maybe there's a way we can say they have to come up with a plan and follow it that shifts the burden of the trucks and the noise and the nuisance.
yeah, I think we can do something based on our master transportation plan where we have all the roads in the city categorized by the amount of traffic that they are supposed to be able to handle. We probably can restrict it to the top tiers of those categories, which will only put them down 2 or 3 roads.
Well, the problem was that if we categorize it as like, it's going to be going straight down 200.
200 is not arterial.
Oh, 1,000. They're gonna go down 1,000 then, which is right in the middle of a neighborhood, because that's an arterial road. Because I had that thought too. Because there's quite a few arterial roads that are going through neighborhoods with lots of little feral kids. I say that with love.
They're called free range
Well,
children.
it's the same thing. Okay, with free range children that are adorable and shouldn't get hit by a gravel truck. I just happen to know what roads are arterial because I happen to serve on another committee.
The lower part of 200 might be considered arterial, which is funny because
I
it's
think is it 720, Dave? Or random citizen? 7, is it 700 that's an arterial?
random citizen.
He can't be here in the city council.
He can be here.
It's only gonna get more arterial as.
Right. Right. And we definitely don't want roads. I mean, I'm okay with 700 because it doesn't go through my street, but 160, remind me if 160 is considered arterial. I don't think it is. Do you have it?
Ned or Melinda, do you have any comments?
I do.
Are-
I like the idea of it being a conditional use permit, and then that's where you have them specify how they're going to mitigate those negative effects as much as possible. I like, that after they use it, and I don't know if we do a time frame or how much they can get out. I mean, they have to rehabilitate it, reclaim that land so that it's nice again. They don't leave this gaping hole or, that dugout that just is an eyesore. I'm torn on like saying, no, not in my town, because every one of us need gravel to build our houses. Are we just going to sit there and say, well, I already have my house, so I don't care if anyone else gets gravel for their house? Like, it feels a little
Yeah, what's your point?
And was there a clarification for that point?
I know, like I
Melinda-
got there first, too bad.
No,
The-
it's
Our ordinance should be.
This one falls in the same category as like the sexually oriented businesses, the cell towers. We can't just say no. So we have to build a sandbox for them to play in somewhere.
Right, but I mean, you don't know where, like, gravel just naturally exists in some places. I really think it's on Skyview Hill. I thought Steve Parkinson years ago talked about like selling off his gravel, and then that would flatten out his hill, and he could actually put a subdivision in because it would be flat. And so to me, I'm like, I feel like he should be able to do that. If there's a naturally occurring source of gravel there, he should get to do that. I mean, what if you had gold under your land? I mean, just, I don't know. Like, I know Holly put in that 2,000 foot, and I kind of did, like, went onto the parcel viewer and measured what 2,000 feet would be to have it be that far away from anything residential. That's a lot. That's a huge distance. And so I get you're probably trying to make it like sexually oriented, that it, only fits in the fewest of places, so they can't in actuality do it. But I don't know. I'm torn.
Our sexually oriented business ordinance says all of the sexually oriented businesses shall be down on 400 West in the county addressing.
Oh, I thought we at least had it in the industrial zone.
well, and I'm not saying not in my backyard. Essentially, it is in my backyard, but I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's disruptive. It's loud. It's noisy. There's a health and safety risk with dust and children falling in because, again, we've got free range children, which is not a developer's problem, but it is an eyesore. Skyview Hill is horrible and will forever be horrible. It changes the natural dimension of the mountain range.
Yeah, going along with that. I haven't really seen Skyview Hill, but I lived in Colorado Springs for a while, and on the west side, just above the beautiful park that they have there with the red rocks, they've got this yellow scar, and that's what it's called, the scar, where they decided to use that area to get all the dirt and rocks for their roads, which I understand that's the basis for the new ordinance that the state put in, is because with all the roads we're putting in, every mile extra that you have to transport gravel puts a huge burden financially on the person doing the road, whether that's the city or the developer for the city or whoever. But yeah, I get that. But again, the safety issue, the nuisance, the dust, the noise. We have a no air brakes, no engine brake allowed ordinance in our city, which half the trucks don't obey now anyway. And my thought is, if they can't stop without their engine brakes, then they're overloaded or their trucks are in really bad condition. And how many trucks had to go through the intersection at Bear Lake before they started putting a whole lot of effort into stopping that? How many people got hurt? And one kid that gets, I'll say it, but the children will be killed.
But
So,
I don't think that that's a
I know-
crazy statement.
No, it's not too far off. I mean, you get a runaway truck, where's it going to stop?
Well,
At
that's
Maverick.
all residential.
It's going to stop at Maverick, or worse, if it's coming down 200 south, it's going to be in the junior high parking lot.
That's why we got to make an ordinance so we can put
So
restrictions on it. Right now, where the only thing we really have in the code is in our land use table, we have a kind of reference to gravel pits saying they're not allowed in residential zones. But right now, that's our only teeth that we have. So we need to create something more comprehensive and exact. So whenever we get that application, we can say, well, you can put your gravel pit in, but we're going to make it next to impossible. So is Holly's ordinance is a great start.
I
Is
think
everybody
it-
okay with that being a starting point? Should I run that by the city attorney to see if there's any
And it
overarching
Get some thoughts on it.
concerns?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be 2,000 feet. I measured from Two Brothers parcel up to where kind of the area is, and it was about 1,500.
Mhm.
I just did 2,000 because there is I don't have, I should have brought it, but there's ordinances in Utah that have it set as 2,000 feet. So
Okay.
I thought that would just be a good jumping off part. That gives enough of a buffer zone from a residential area that we're not worried so much about the safety
Or the noise and the
or the
dust.
noise or
I
the
I
dust.
do have one
or-
random question. No, it doesn't really matter, I guess, kind of, but let's say we do set that ordinance and it works, sounds great. They go establish, we get a gravel pit somewhere and in 5 years or 10 years, development starts to encroach upon that 2,000 feet. Does that affect them at all?
No, because.
No.
Because they're already there, right? Like
Their
it-
grandfather.
So anybody who chooses to move in at that point understands they're moving into an area
A
that
double
has a gravel
box.
pit.
Yeah, I mean, they better.
I'm just thinking like the Milky Way area, like
Be up
people
all
aren't
night. Yeah.
really excited about
Be
all
up
the
all
cows and stuff, but they've been there for 50 years.
Right.
So it's like, you move in there, you get what you get.
Hey, you should have spent 10 extra seconds just looking at your front
Leave my
window
sleep.
while you were touring the house.
Okay, that's all. I was
I'm
curious.
not even.
Yeah.
Some things I'm not even. Yeah, he would already be.
Okay, well, I'm happy to take that, have a discussion with the city attorney, see if there's any glaring problems with it, with all the new codes that got approved this year by the state regarding gravel pits, and we can just build from there. Is that
I mean, I just don't
Okay.
see a problem with not allowing it above 700 north or 700 east.
Well, I mean, 2,000.
Because the zones that are there don't, and
Good.
the geology is probably fantastic for it,
uh-huh.
but the geography isn't,
Well, I guess maybe that's one good thing about
or the road plan.
the mountain rec zone. If it goes through, everything that gets turned into mountain rec zone can never be a gravel pit. So
Yeah,
I can't remember, in Holly's proposal, was it a conditional use permit?
no.
No.
no, we
It
could
is
add that.
So
Make
one
it
of
up.
the things they talked about in that, I'll just share a little bit on that. About conditional use permits. Should we have them? Should we not have them? They're really an administrative thing. And if we want to be around every time someone comes to us and meets all those conditions and say, okay, well, you met them, so we have to approve it. Then that's fine. Otherwise, just put it in the code and we don't have to approve it. It's already approved by the code itself. So
I guess it just goes back to whatever we build into the code. If we build in ambiguity, you're going to want it to be a conditional use permit. But if we make it very exact, there's really no point in making it a conditional use permit, because you're exactly right. They're going to come in. They've met all the requirements.
and you can't say no.
All we can do is say, thanks for applying,
Yeah,
approved.
here's your sign. Here's my sign.
So Mike, are you arguing for a conditional use permit or against a CUP?
Again.
Think I'm arguing more for the specificity that Ollie has provided us. The only thing that I have questions about, of course, is that I mentioned is G, the access restrictions. And the only thing that I'm worried about really is the stuff on the hill. If there was one to be built on the hill, then how would they get the product out? And there's only a few ways. And there are certain houses that will have every single truck that goes in and out of that gravel pit pass by it.
Right.
And I just think that's totally unfair to them and to the rest of the community that will have to, especially not Center Street, but Hyde Park Way and 200 South. And there's a few others that are really going to get a lot of traffic. And I know how Smithfield does it. They've got the cement plant up there. And they have a plan where trucks are only allowed to go down certain streets on certain days, so it kind of divides the misery. And that's the only way that I mean, if it were to happen, that's what we'd have to make sure was in the code so that they had to follow their own plan. And maybe we tell them, sorry, you can't drive anywhere on Saturday or Sunday. So those are the times that people really want to be in their yards and enjoying themselves. And when you can't hear the person next to you talking because the trucks are going up and down the street, which my family has experienced on 200 South, it's no fun anymore. There goes your Saturday.
Well, and there's so much development and there has been in the last 7 years that I've been up there, up around me, it's all gotten developed. And so that's a reason for that is we have trucks going up and down all day, every day, doing those developments. So adding more to it would be.
Well, would they have to come up? They would it depends on if the city was to get one.
Well, they would come down you would think they would
They'd
come
still have
down
to come up.
1,000 to go to the new road that goes out to the highway. But I don't know.
I don't know either. So, but I like this. I'd love to say G is great, but
No, I
just
get,
don't see any practical way of.
no, I just threw that
See
in
what
What
there.
the
is
attorney
that-
says.
Yeah, we'll see what the attorney says. I know there are restrictions you can put on it, but with all the new laws that have been passed, I don't know what they are anymore. So we'll run it by him and see what he thinks we can do.
Ned, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. The only thing I was sitting here thinking of is, be careful. If a developer's leveling land and he has a bunch of surplus dirt, but up here on the hill, there's no dirt. It's just really a gravel pit up here on the whole thing. And so they're hauling it away. We got to let them do that. But,
But that wouldn't be. a
that's the one
gravel-
thing, that would be kind of a little bit tough. They got to be able to haul it away, but not for it to be commercially a gravel pit. That makes sense.
Right. Yeah, we let that happen. We've even allowed like the Lone Cedar development, we let them get a conditional use permit to harvest gravel, but they can only use it back on the lots that they develop. So they can't sell any product outside of their development. It all goes back into landscaping the yards for the lots that they're selling. And the mountain rec guys have asked for the same thing. When they go in and start leveling things out to build, they want to harvest those materials and use them back for building their trails and things like that. So the city's allowed that. But yeah, for commercial use, we're just describing an ordinance to regulate the commercial sale of those materials potentially outside of the city limits.
Right. I guess when they take that to the lawyer, we need to make sure that the final language comes out and doesn't preclude those kind of things.
Yep. Okay.
So then you may want to relook or just double check the definition of mineral extraction activities to make sure that that still allows in development use of that material.
Yeah, and Holly made it real easy where she cited the state codes and everything else. So we can look those up real quick.
She's example to all of us.
You are so welcome. Thank you. Thank you. I love that random citizen laughed during that moment. Either.
Did you do the same thing for medical cannabis?
I sure did. I sure did. Medical
Okay.
cannabis was more my brainchild, and then I plugged it into AI to just get the proper verbiage.
Is it,
I-
Cannabis one?
That's
'Cause
sorry,
this one,
I'm
I
moving.
looked through quite a bit last couple weeks after Mr. Michael Moses' email. No, that was gravel. Yeah, gravel. I went through quite a few cannabis codes throughout not only Utah, but Idaho and Montana.
Mhm.
But
Sorry,
this one is definitely suggestion, like not.
My little joke moved us on to the next item. Sorry. It's your meeting.
We're gonna go, what are we gonna do?
I don't know if we're done talking gravel pits, you can move
Or
on.
is there
But
any other comments on gravel pits? Okay, let's move on to Rocky Mountain High. Oh, sorry. Well,
Is that the new?
John
billboard?
Denver,
Yeah,
John Denver.
I think this is a good starting point, also the one Holly created, because it actually is pretty similar to that Draper one that's in here.
Yeah, so
with
I
a few
took
more
a lot.
specifics
Yeah.
for, like about school zones, things like that.
Well, and then I
Plus-
changed the hours as well. I believe in the Draper one, or
It's
There's a lot broader
seven.
hours.
it's way broad. And I'm like, if this is a pharmacy, let's go off pharmacy hours,
Yeah,
which is 9 to
spelled
6.
FARM.
Sure. And then I also put in there signage, like there could not be any signage that has a marijuana leaf or a marijuana plant or anything like that.
Nice.
Like it had like absolutely no picture of a marijuana anything.
Yeah, I think this is good.
Yeah, I
starting
think the
point.
only the green cross instead of the red cross, the green cross is what I've seen everywhere.
Well, I really like the Wholesome company in Salt Lake. Have you seen those billboards?
No,
It's from, yeah, it's for weed.
sure.
And it says the Wholesome company, we deliver in brown boxes. Hilarious, but not in my backyard, Melinda.
Got it.
I wish she was here.
Okay, I'm gonna just say the same thing about this one. I think it's good. I have even less idea of what medical cannabis requirements are than gravel pits are, so I'm not even gonna venture to guess if any of this is legal or not legal. I'm just, if everyone's okay, I'll send this to the attorney and we'll just get his comments and go from there.
That's my vote.
Okay?
My only, I have a few, just one comment, I guess. When the county looked at this a few years ago, when I was on the county planning commission, I dug into it a little bit, talked to Mark Ashcroft at the county extension office. And I was trying to come up with something for the county ordinance. And Mark just said, it's way too expensive to grow well in Cache Valley. It just needs a lot warmer climate to even do very well. So the pharmacy stuff, I don't know about. But as far as growing it, he's like, he just said economically, it wouldn't make sense for anyone to put much effort into that. Doesn't mean they won't, doesn't mean someone couldn't. So I agree we need something in there, but he acted like it wasn't going to be a huge booming business in our valley.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Greenhouse.
a greenhouse, they sell them at Costco now.
Yeah,
Yeah, I only have two comments. One is maybe like we could put I think it was in the Draper one that said something about, the number of cannabis related businesses per X number of population.
Right,
Yeah.
1 per 40,000.
Yeah, that'd be okay.
Yeah,
And
that. Yeah,
add
that,
something like that in there. And then the second one was, I think there's the cannabis related where they process the weed to do different things and not allow that in any zones, or maybe industrial. I don't even know. That's
So-
gonna,
so they're just selling product that was shipped to them.
yeah.
That's good to me.
yeah. If they want to grow or what's the,
Yeah, I mean, I think you should put down there, until we have
Industrial.
40,000 people, we can't have a cannabis store.
we only have one.
I'll be gone by then.
Yeah, when we hit 45. Me too.
So we'll just change that a little bit.
Maybe we'll just say
Let it-
one for
let it-
40,000, but we'll count North Logan. So they already have one, so we're good.
Just put North Park,
Yeah.
North Park.
The North Park
we
region.
share the same police department. That's what's gonna be policing this.
There you go.
It's like, for one,
For
put
that,
one police department, one police
40,000?
department.
One per police department.
One per police
So
department.
we're already covered because North Logan
We're
has a
good.
that's a
dispensary.
Draper,
That's in the Draper one.
that's in the
Quicker
Draper
it's done.
ordinance. So Draper
Motion
City.
to adjourn.
Number of shops per population.
For county,
I'll check with the attorney. There might be something in the state statute, but my guess is it's gonna go back to like county zoning requirements only really apply to the unincorporated areas. That's my guess. But like I said, I know even less about this than gravel pits, so I'll ask the attorney.
Okay. All right, any other comments? I guess we're having a conversation about. I see all the signs, the billboards, having a conversation about weed.
Utah does not have a specific population-based requirement. I'll tell you later.
Okay. That was the last thing on the list. Marcus raised his finger, which means he has one thing to bring up.
I do. One thing. The city council, the planning commission asked the city council if we could do a workshop to talk about mixed use. The city council said, sure, anytime you're available. So the planning commission needs to pick a day to hold the workshop and the city council will make it there.
Two weeks from tonight at 6 o'clock.
Like better looking. Is that what?
June 4th?
Yeah, just right before our regular meeting at 6 o'clock.
June 4th at 6. Does that work for the planning commission? For the whole planning commission?
I will
That
have
works
to
for
be-
Melinda.
Mr. Michael, I think, has a conflict.
Yeah, I do, but that's okay. I can get on the Zoom. I'll be in Richfield.
So for everybody else, June 4th at 6 o'clock. Would that work? Okay, city council, mayor, you hear that? June 4th at 6.
Perfect.
So that sounds like a great
So-
time then.
Might actually get something done. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
All
You
right.
said it. I motion to adjourn.
All right. We have a motion to adjourn. I see that there's nothing left on the
second.
agenda. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of adjourning this meeting, say aye.
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 Okay, I know we had more than three, so we're
Who
good.
was the motion and the second for that?
Motion, second.
Okay, thank you.
We want to wish Ned our best